mostly a couple to hero as well, with taking games as well. But yeah, MaxPax is looking like to be in the best form that he's ever been. However, I will say this: Reynor is a big game player. He has an ego, and he has the best kind of ego, because he really lets it out, and he really lets his emotions show and how he feels about the game. And I feel like he grows against the greater the opposition is. I guarantee you, Reynor of all matches is gonna be putting his heart into this one, because this is the guy that passed him on a league. Like, this is the guy that people are looking at, and Reynor want people to look at him.
Gets me more excited than I already was, Cats, and I've been talking about this all day. In the top left-hand corner from Basilisk, the red Zerg, it is Reynor.
And in the bottom right-hand side for Psystorm Gaming, it is the absolute beast that's had a meteoric rise in the last couple of years, now reaching his peak form, MaxPax. Beast.
Yeah, I feel like every time these two play, it is fun. Like I say, they've played more aggressive games as of late. They are both players, I feel like, you do sometimes mix it up more when we get to these bigger matches, though. MaxPax showed us some really cool stuff when he played against Serral in big matches in the past. Reynor never messes around with events like this either. He's pretty much always kind of getting straight through. I feel like he would be disappointed in himself to not get into the playoffs without a 3-0, right, if he actually had to go through an extra round of Swiss. So, yeah. Really exciting. Again, winner goes to the playoffs. The loser will likely still make playoffs just via a different route, via an extra round, but nice to just get booked in and have a few days off without having to worry about playing more games.
Yeah, absolutely. A very high-pressure game. I mean, MaxPax has performed under pressure so well, but Reynor, obviously, a former world champion in his own right, and the recent one at that, so he definitely knows what it takes. He definitely knows how to win against anyone. It's going to be up to him to try and defend against those adept openers that can be so pesky. I personally hate him, so I'm going to be looking at him to show me the way.
Show me the way. Teach me. They're tough, man, and especially MaxPax, who has so many different adept openers. It's not just the 4-gate glaives anymore, right? It's 3-gate into, what, 6-gate glaives sometimes? Sometimes it's a robo base, sometimes it's a more passive DT follow-up, or, you know, a more aggressive kind of full-on push. There are so many ways to go, and, you know, the first round of adepts isn't always the most threatening round anymore either. So, yeah, there's just a lot on the line. There's a lot kind of at stakes here, and just a lot of different things that Reynor basically has to be prepped for. Even if you identify Twilight, sometimes nowadays it's not even, adepts. Sometimes we pop down the Dark Shrine and we play ourselves into DTs and into, the follow-up Robo Facility and, like, DT Archon drop. I don't think that will necessarily be the case here with, obviously, absolutely no Robo, but as we get 2 more gates up, looks like we'll start Glaive soon and ready up this Glaved Adept opening.
Yeah, not the cleanest on either side here, as Reynor was a little bit late to his first 2 sets of links. Maybe there was an opening for MaxPax to actually shade into the natural, and now he's going to be able to get away, but not before losing a little bit of whole HP on the first adept. So I think that shade could have happened on the first attempt, and Reynor wouldn't have been ready, but probably MaxPax anticipating that Reynor would have been. Also, like the smallest detail that does, it's basically inconsequential, but Reynor mind ate too much gas, right? So it's kind of that thing that makes me think, wow, he didn't actually click it as fast as possible. It's not so much the impact of mining the extra 8 gas preemptively. It showed 4, but there was another drone that had gas at the natural, right, that returned back to minerals and mined it. So it kind of shows that Reynor's not quite tuned into the game to the level that a world champion would be. So he's gonna have to adjust and warm up quickly here, as MaxPax is already crossing the map with his first 5 adepts, and it will be a robo follow-up, potentially with a disruptor, a drop to follow and anticipate the road switch.
Yep. I like it, man. I always feel like this is very fun. Just really cool to get the disruptors on the map and just hunt around for some damage. It's definitely one of the things that Reynor has, lost to as of late when I've been seeing some of his games. Has had some struggles there, so see what he can do. The first adepts always feels like, man, can these 5 adepts really be okay? And in this case, like, well, they get away, but now these 3 adepts reinforcing get caught, and obviously anytime you're taking any adepts down, it just weakens the follow-up. We're going to kill 1, the other 2 should survive. Roach is already out and starting to come forward as well. MaxPax trying to gather everything back up. He kept 2 adepts in the top right corner, waiting for a chance to shade toward the 3rd.
Yeah, beautiful moves there from Reynor as well, anticipating the shade onto third doesn't populate it or evacuates it in time that he doesn't end up losing anything. And the Lynx were looking to get in position to punish those Adepts, end up finding the 3, only take down 1, however. And now the follow-up for MaxPax. So he hasn't been able to find much just yet. One Adept will carelessly go down here from MaxPax, as he now looks to be annoying on multiple locations while he builds his Disruptors and the Warp Prism speed for the follow-up.
Yep, Disruptors, Prism speed, kind of everything we expected this to be. As we do have our Nexus dropping down on the third base location, so getting that set up. And yeah, so far looking good still. A few Adepts of MaxPax continue to come around through the middle and just continue to hunt and see what's going on.
Perfect defense so far from Il Bambino, as he now takes up to a quick lair, looking to get that road speed promptly, and that's going to be very important to aid him in trying to dodge those Disruptor shots. The creep spread is decent, but not in all directions just yet. So there's going to be openings for MaxPax to posture onto the third, potentially from the north right side. Will reveal his opening due to those Lynx attacking one of the Stalkers. In order to save the Stalker on the Warp Prism, has to juggle the Disruptors out, which means Reynor gets a little bit of a heads up and a little bit of a delay, but MaxPax is not going to be quiet about it. Gets 4 drones in the meanwhile. 4
drones, trying to shade Adepts into the natural. There are units here. I don't like that completion of that shade. Don't feel like that was really it, but yeah, maybe if there was something else about it happened because of it, but everything else was just too far away. And this first Disruptor shot honestly fires from too far back as well. That wasn't scary at all, so really good defense from Reynor. He's not letting MaxPax do much. Like, 4 drones was nice, but then we've lost a lot of Adepts for those 4 drones in the end. And even the Disruptor follow-up is not doing much either, so at the moment, we're just not getting enough done at all. We are on our way to +1 in Blink, but Reynor's holding a worker lead. And a lot of the time, I feel like when MaxPax sees a lot of success with this build, even when it doesn't do damage, like directly, with, you know, trading out amazingly or whatever, it's that Zerg is so scared that they keep on building units for too long without getting a good drone count up.
Perfect splits. Another set of good splits. Gets, I mean, 2 Roaches, 1 more than perfect, right? You're always going to guarantee one of those Roaches before Roach speed is done. And MaxPax angling where he should, where there isn't creep. So identifying that very quickly and trying to get value out of that. Reynor now will look to create some creep over there as MaxPax shades onto the natural. And yeah, the previous shade wasn't the best. This one a little bit better. Will find 4 workers. The previous shade did allow MaxPax to move on a little bit forward as now Reynor tries to fire it, but this one road short. And that'll cost him dearly. I mean, it was either that or you know, lose like 3 or so Roaches anyway, because he's just out of position, out of creep right now. He will get punished. And MaxPax now gaining a little bit of ground, a little bit of value. And now the traits do benefit him, but the early game of Reynor was so clean that this game is still looking pretty good for him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as we knock down an Overlord, MaxPax, though, is coming up the left side. You know, a couple trades like that, and suddenly you do see MaxPax in a bit of a worker lead. And, you know, this moment where Reynor is still kind of playing Roach Ling, we do have tech coming up in the form of a Hive and a Hydra Den. The Ling's doing very well here as the Stalker's unable to get away soon enough. The Disruptor shot has to go in more as a warning shot, so we'll not get a connection. We still have Ling's chasing Reynor, making the most of the tail end of this battle.
Yeah, and it was the tail end of that battle that Reynor entered through with those Lings, anticipating the blinks from the Stalkers to protect themselves against the Roaches. So a beautiful flank to start things off there in the fight. And Reynor can use this ground now to spread creep and maybe even go on the counter offense, as he has 2 groups of units. One will cancel the 4th before it ever goes up and potentially punish at least one of these Stalkers. The other one will escape with its life thanks to the blink. On the other side, Reynor not quite ready to go. And on this side, MaxPax finding beautiful connections with his Warp Prism speed on the flank.
I gotta say, man, like, this is why MaxPax terrifying to play against, because he really didn't do great at first, and a lot of people would see these kind of builds as just flopping if they don't do a lot straight away. MaxPax just always hunting, and someone as good as Reynor ends up making mistakes because it's so hard to keep up with everything and all the different ways in which MaxPax is trying to throw, you know, fire at you. That's going to be a chunk of drones this time, and a few more as well for 8 kills in total. MaxPax is just keeping himself in great posture. However, there is lurkers on the way up, Cats. And with lurkers, Reynor's army is obviously going to improve. And especially the Stalkers feel like they become a lot worse at that stage. Really comes down to whether we can force those lurkers to have to reposition a lot, and if the Disruptors can help to clean a few of them out.
Yeah, Itchy Hands has had Reynor to go on the other side of the map with Roaches that are really, you know, easy to catch with that Warp Prism speed. And against most players, he gets away with it. But against MaxPax, he has been punished. I mean, not without making stuff happen. He did get the cancel onto the 4th. this Lynx a little bit more free to be out on the counter offense. But yeah, MaxPax finding all the punishments. He knows all the pockets, right? He knows where to drop those adepts, where it's going to be difficult to reach and pass those minerals and chokes and whatnot, and fires wonderful shots every time. So now Reynor going onto those lurkers, but you could argue the lurkers are kind of semi-countered by the disruptors. Luckily for Reynor, there isn't that many of yet, and if he can transition into a hive and get himself some vipers to aid him, or if he can get in an aggressive position with the aid of his Lynx, then those lurkers can be super deadly against the gateway units.
So it's on the left side, going to get caught by a few Lings, at least a few of them are. And this is MaxPax, though, taking the chance to move into the upper right. Lurkers will have to try and take position here, and we will see MaxPax blinking back a little bit out of reach of them. Disruptors can go for maybe the first couple of kills. We get one with just the Stalkers. The Disruptors do force it back a little bit. Next shot is decent to finish off a Queen. And again, it's just a question of getting those Lurkers in position in the first place. That can be kind of tough. Reynor set up for a massive counter-attack, by the way, and we'll see if MaxPax is ready to deal with that while everything else has been going on. He continues into more Disruptors, and he made a Temple Archives, yet to really put it into use yet, though.
Yeah, that is a massive counter-attack indeed, and yeah, it's so cool to watch how MaxPax thinks here. Like, he has 2 Disruptors, there are multiple Lurkers, you need 2 Disruptor shots to kill a Lurker, and yet he fires one at a time because he anticipates that his opponent is good enough to reposition one. So instead of saying, I'm gonna kill your Lurkers, he says, okay, I'm not gonna kill your Lurkers, but I'm gonna buy extra time for my Stalkers to do damage by saving one shot. And kind of, you know, like kind of prorating his shots in that sense. Evacuates the probes here as now Reynor comes in and will be able to clear a lot of these Stalkers. Things looking great for Bambino as MaxPax does not have enough on defense. And after a very clean start and a little bit of a muddy mid-game, Reynor will take game number 1.
Yeah, I think what this really comes down to is that while MaxPax started to do a lot of things very well, he was still stuck on 2 Disruptors and Stalkers, and that was it. There was nothing else, right? There was no tech up, and Reynor was slowly teching up. So while it kind of looked like he was on the ropes, maybe a bit tough defending here or there, or getting pulled around, he had the Lurker tech coming in, and there was just not a response in time to deal with that. I mean, 2 Disruptors, like you say, you need 2 Disruptors to kill 1 Lurker. And he did a very good job of making the absolute most of what he had. Like you say, great point. 1 Disruptor shot at a time, it means you can get more shots off and scare Reynor into repositioning more often than you should be able to, in theory. But yeah, obviously, I mean, in the end of the day, you've got 2 Disruptors, and Reynor just gets across the map. And that moment, it's like, you realize how weak MaxPax's army is and how much of his strength was really around his own positioning and his own ability to keep the movement in the game. So, yeah, that is going to be game 1. Going the way of Reynor. I would say pretty solid, man, especially early game. The defense was good. And yes, muddied in the middle game, but he got back on track, and he had at least a game plan. He had an ending point he wanted to reach, and he was able to reach it without the game going too aloft.
Yeah, and Reynor is one of the most intuitive, but honestly, just brilliant players out there. I think his decision-making is just always so great. It is so counterintuitive to go back for Lurkers when your opponent opened Disruptors, because again, on paper, you should be countered. But Reynor knows how MaxPax thinks, and he knows that if there's not multiple Disruptors, if there's just the 2 that are being juggled around, then Lurkers are kind of the hard answer to everything else that MaxPax has, right? So even if both Disruptors fire, and if they both connect and they kill a couple of Lurkers, the rest of the Lurkers are still going to put in a great deal of work and are going to free up his army to go on the counter offense as he did whenever he wants. So just a brilliant decision, right? It's very difficult, very counterintuitive to play into your quote-unquote counter, just anticipating that it's not going to be, you know, there's not going to be more added Disruptors from that point on.
Bottom right-hand side of the map, Babylon for game 2. Our red Zerg is Reynor, up 1.
And in the top left-hand side for Psystorm Gaming, he is MaxPax.
Okay, what do you think then, Cats? Babylon map 2, do we Twilight again? Or do we maybe go towards something a bit more Stargate focused? Or is it really just up in the air? You know, is there really just any which choice here for MaxPax?
I think for Babylon, I mean, the Twilight openings are pretty good, right? And MaxPax, like you said, he has a breadth of options when it comes to those Twilight openings. So really, it's not so revealing, whereas another player, you might see a Twilight opening and know what their opening is, or expect maybe the one variation into teaser or something like that. MaxPax can kind of do it all off of that opening. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that again.
Yeah, I'm never against it when MaxPax goes Twilight Council twice, because he does just have different ways to do it, different ways to set it up, and you know, he's just so good at it that even if it got defended well the first time, he can make it work a second. So I'm kind of down, open to see what he wants to do here. Let's see what his choice shall be as our Overlord currently wandering to the upper left to get a scout off. And we have a couple moments of peace before chaos.
Urubu.
Yeah, where's the Urubu this time? Oh, there it is.
Right there.
I really don't think that looks
eating.
like a vulture. There's no way.
It doesn't look like a vulture much, no. There's multiple Urubus now we're noticing them as they tend to eat in the darker parts, but sometimes they just like the dirt. It's really about where the worms are concentrated.
Oh, yeah?
I think so. Or where units have died, I guess. They're vultures, right? But nothing has died yet, so they must be starving these poor Urubus.
What happens when two Urubus meet?
That's why there's so many of them. Multiply.
Well,
all right. We are in this game now. I mean, the MaxPax block here was effective on the natural base of Reynor. He will be getting a relatively quick third there at 2930 supply. And will be forced to play off of the transfer. This makes Adepts and Oracles both more effective after the block. So the Stargate makes a lot more sense as a result as well. As Reynor is now making additional circlings. Let's look at his circling split for the sake of learning for a friend. It's going to be 4 at the natural.
Yep. Ooh. They now got a 4-way surround on that Adept there. Gets a good amount of damage on it straight away. Obviously makes it easier to shove back when 2 Adepts come in and try and deal damage as well. So imagine that'll be a factor as the 2 Adepts do begin to move in. And the Ling's got to move over to the side.
Yeah, absolutely. So, nice snipe on the creep tumor there as well. There's not a lot of energy to spare in this early game, so that is a nice pickoff. Something that could come back to haunt Reynor, as this Adept Shade could have finished there. And, you know, there was only 2 links, so they probably would have killed at least a couple of workers, at least created a little bit of chaos. But again, MaxPax is the type of player that feels confident heading into the later stages of the game with the pieces that he has, so he's not going to go for those shades unless he is certain that they're going to do a ton. Instead, he's going to save him for a 1-2 punch with his oracles, potentially.
Yep. Absolutely. As a Roach Drone just comes up, little oracle getting ready to go, and he is going to have to reveal it, though. His first oracle to get rid of these Lings on the 3rd, so that's already just the oracle revealed, and now the second oracle coming up. Adept's still moving around this other side, Cats, but the defense from Reynor is on point. I always think Reynor's at his very best when his early game looks clean like this, because I think back to that Katowice he won, right? When it was just off the back of such good early game play that he always hit the mid game in such good stride that it was just impossible to rock him, and he was always playing at his absolute best, basically. So, yeah, I always feel like when Reynor's defending like this, I'm like, man, Reynor is feeling it in this series, you know?
Yeah, and cleaning those Adepts is wonderful for him. We'll find a probe, but also an undefended base. This should force the Oracles back. Instead, MaxPax is going to look for damage on the other side, but that might mean a cancel onto this 3rd. It's both. It's the Oracles going back. No recall available by the looks of it, or at least not chosen. And that's because there's a 3rd Oracle on the way. Will that be enough? Reynor thinks it's not, and he is going to be correct. The cancel is successful. A great move again for Reynor.
Yeah, really solid. He's losing a couple of drones on the other side. Adepts this time do come in. 4 workers dead. And obviously a pretty big drone pull off of this mineral line on top of that. So that is adding up a little bit. And now seeing our Twilight Council about to finish up from MaxPax on the top side. So getting the Twilight and the Forge finished up in the main. 2 more, 3 more, 4 more gateways all coming up. And we try and power into the Blink follow-up here. But it does feel as though this is, again, being very good defense. One of these Oracles super low as well, by the way. So, and Reynor, again, just, yeah, a little blip as he loses a few drones in the end. But you know, they were pretty late drones to lose. It's not like he was losing these drones at 30 drones. He was losing them at like 50 plus. That makes a big difference in the game as well, that he survived so long before the first damage was dealt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, each one of those drones mines 60 minerals per minute. That means they multiply just like the Urubus do. And so later in the game, when it's a lesser portion of your economy, it doesn't matter nearly as much. So these Oracles have been slow to find their damage, whereas Reynor did slow down MaxPax considerably by getting that cancel onto the 3rd base. So things once again looking pretty good for him and his transitions. He has been clean enough to go into this mid game in the position that he wants to be in.
Yep, absolutely. As we just hit ourselves into charge. We hit ourselves into lair. We'll see if Reynor can get himself into that kind of setup to fight against this force. I mean, Zealot Archon is definitely kind of one of those armies that kind of wants to push quickly and like push throughout the game. It definitely wants to trade a lot. Sort of army which if you let the Zerg kind of mass up and come at you, it doesn't always go well. Especially early, you want to maybe try and hit a bit of a timing to force the Zerg into units. But to be fair, Reynor was making a ton of roaches anyway. So I feel like his prep for this is going to be absolutely fine, cats. He's going to have so many roaches, pretty well set up. +1 missiles and roach speed both on the way. Let's see if he can get it.
Yeah, for MaxPax is about getting the 4th, but he would get taxed heavily if he commits to it. Instead, he's going to turn around for the army, but the reinforcements are here for Reynor. However, no anti-air, or not enough of it anyway, so the Oracles are going to go to work here. Surprisingly, not turning for the Queens, maybe anticipating that Reynor would have more Queen reinforcements on the way. They go for the Roaches to make things easier for the Archons, but it's not enough for MaxPax. And like you said, Wardicho, that is a lot of Roaches on the way. Roach speed nearly finished. MaxPax was looking for a timing as +1 and charge both finished at the same time here for him and for that particular attack. So not getting the 4th, that's what he came for. And he's going to leave empty-handed yet again.
Blink on the way now, +2 attack, and we will get double Robo and Robo base. So absolutely not wanting to stay on this little initial charged out Archon force. Just seeing that he needs a lot more and a lot different things as this game progresses. But Overlord speed's about to kick in. We've got Queens moving across. Roaches are coming across. And Reynor's just going to send it after dealing with this first push so convincingly and his early game being solid. He might just have enough to rock MaxPax off of this game. And MaxPax does not really have a lot of prep. A battery and a cannon on the 3rd right now. He needs a lot more stack defense if he's going to hold this. The Disruptors will help, do not get me wrong. But if that first Disruptor doesn't hit gold, he might just die.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, these rocks haven't been taken out. I would love for those rocks to still be taken out to have 2 paths of attack potentially. Reynor is just biding his time for the time being and threatening until the Queens arrive here. Now maybe dropping some creep and trying to make something happen. On the other side, MaxPax is going to set himself a little bit of a win condition, or at least coming closer to it, but Reynor is actually going to answer in time. The first Disruptor shot does connect with a Roach and the Ravager. That's not nothing. The second one, can you load into the... Cannot. That was an option. Another Ravager does go down, but it will cost MaxPax a Disruptor. Opens up the gates into the natural, but there's another Disruptor spawning. No saving Reynor's Ravagers from that. So a huge connection again, but Reynor still seems to have too much of a very early game. That was very beautiful from him. He identifies his win condition, now loading 3rd. 2 Robos with Disruptors in production at a time, but at this point, you almost would rather have Immortals for consistent DPS. MaxPax scrambling to get units out. He's going to opt for the Void Ray. Another Disruptor shot is going to whip or mostly connect onto 3 links or so. And Reynor has done it. The 2-0 is hit.